This discussion answers the question, is there a path from proprietorship to MNC? The question is pretty simple to answer. The answer is yes. Or it may be no, or maybe. Well, we'll talk about it and we'll see. And we'll come up with a moment of honesty where we sit down and finally figure out, can a sole proprietorship eventually grow into a multinational corporation? And last but not least, we're going to talk about the important bit, vision. Vision is everything. Now, how do we know when a sole proprietorship, SP, turns into a multinational corporation, MNC? Well, it's pretty easy actually. An SP turns into an MNC when it controls and owns at least 10% of operations in a foreign country. That's not so bad. So when we see this happen during the discussion, we're going to know that the SP is no longer just an SP, it has finally transitioned into a multinational corporation, an MNC. And that's what we're going to use. Remember, as an entrepreneur, it's very important to write down your ideas. Why? Because ideas will give you a vision of your company. And that's where you start. You create a vision for your company, including some sort of target segment and a big idea that you want to sell or do. And that's where you really hit the ground running. Then kick off your SP. You get out there, you risk it, you go do the work. You are the one-person show. You make that vision a reality. After a while, the SP is going to grow a little bigger than you expected. You're going to be like, oh wow, I need to have talent. And that means I need to have some sort of limited liability corporation or partnership. So you're going to reshape your company into an LLP or an LLC, hire the talent, get the finance, all that cool stuff with limited liability, and build a bigger and more vibrant company. However, someday, your partners and you are going to look at each other and say, is this all there is? And you're going to say, no, we can incorporate. We're going to turn ourselves into a professional company, which is step number 4. This is a time where you do a whole bunch of stuff to professionalize the firm, have processes all worked out and documented, all that sort of cool stuff. And then, if you're lucky, you can set up an IPO and, take your company public, or you can keep it private. It's up to you. But even then, there's the question of, is there more? I'm pretty good domestically. Can I sell to the international market? The answer is yes. However, you have to choose how you're going to do it. Are you going to do it alone? Are you going to be the brave little company that goes out there and moves into other countries and sets up shop? Are you going to do it with a joint venture like we talked about a moment ago? Are you going to merge into some other company and let them drag you into these other regions? So the question that we opened up this discussion with is important. And the first answer to it is yes. How do you know it? Because, well, the path is right here. If you can work through these 5 steps, you'll be able to take a small proprietorship and eventually, with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money, get it to some sort of global marketplace. You will eventually emerge into an MNC role. So yes, it is possible. The process on the previous slide seemed pretty easy. Just 5 steps, right? We just redefine our company as we go along. But it's not that simple. For example, when you start, you're working solo. You're working by yourself. The company is you. And at that point, you don't have any real written documentation on how you do things because you don't really need it. You know what you need to do. However, as you progress closer and closer to the LLC or LLP form, you're going to end up writing something called SOP, okay, Standard Operating Procedures. Okay, sometimes they call them manuals and stuff like that. This allows you and your partners, who's ever participating in your firm at this point or your company at this point, to understand what to do if something happens. They don't have to run back to you and ask. They can just look it up in the book and say, aha, that's what we do. And eventually, some point, those SOPs or manual are going to turn into professional roles where people are hired to execute those roles in a professional fashion. For example, like an accountant or a CEO or a CFO or a chief academic officer or whatever it is. They're going to chop up that manual into well-described jobs, professional jobs, and run the company as a professional business. And this will allow you to become a professional company and eventually either go it alone, enter a JV, or merge into some other bigger company to go tackle the world. Now, what else do you have to think about? You also have to think about you. When you start, it's all about you. That's the beauty of a SP. You're the end all of everything. However, as you transition through this process, you're going to shift away from the self-centeredness of you into becoming a leader, where you're going to establish a vision and keep the teams working towards it. And eventually, you're going to take those teams and break them up into professional teams, which will conduct business in a professional way, just like you probably do at work every day. So you're going to have to shift from you to working collaboratively with teams. The next thing you're going to have to grow up and realize is this. Initially, you're doing everything, but you can't do that all the time. If your company gets too big and you try to do everything, one, you're just going to become very inefficient. Stuff you're going to be doing won't be that good, and you'll just break down. The company will fail. You don't want that. So you have to transition from doing everything to embracing technology and to understand the importance of automations in what you do. You try to automate everything, or at least have someone else help you. And last but not least, as your company grows, you're going to start from local sales, then indirect exporting, for example, like selling from eBay to other countries, and engage foreign distributors where they'll say, you make the product or whatever it is, we'll package it up and we'll sell it for you over here. And you'll start distributing through that channel. And after a while, as your company matures and grows, you're going to have money. Then you're going to do something called greenfielding, is when you go out to that foreign country and you build a plant or a facility or office or whatever there, or you buy one and you start operating as an MNC. So